Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, let us take a moment to breathe, to be present, to remember that strength does not always roar. Sometimes it is silent, rooted, timeless, much like a mountain that has witnessed empires rise and fall. There is a civilization that has stood for thousands of years, not through domination, but through resilience, wisdom, and spiritual clarity. Today, I speak not of a country that wishes to conquer, but of a nation that cannot be conquered. India. You may ask, why is this land so difficult for the West or for any power to truly defeat? The answer is not just in history, it is in the spirit of India. A spirit that flows like the Ganga, bends but never breaks, that transforms challenge into knowledge and invaders into stories. This is not a speech of nationalism, it is a reflection on endurance, identity, and inner strength. So, let us begin, not just with open ears, but with open minds. India's resilience as a civilization is not merely a matter of historical record, it is a living testimony to the endurance of an ancient soul. While empires have crumbled, borders have been redrawn, and world powers have risen and faded, India has continued to exist, transforming, adapting, yet always remaining deeply connected to its roots. This is not by chance, but by a conscious and collective strength carried across generations, centuries, and millennia. It is not just the physical endurance of land or people, it is the survival of a way of thinking, a way of living, and a way of being that transcends the limitations of time and conquest. Unlike many nations whose identities are built around a specific period or political structure, India's identity has been shaped across epochs. From the Indus Valley civilization, one of the world's oldest urban cultures, to the Vedic age that gave rise to the Upanishads and deep philosophical inquiry, India has continually renewed itself without severing its roots. Every wave of invasion, whether by Persians, Greeks, Mughals, or the British, came with the intent to dominate, but India absorbed, internalized, and transformed those influences into something uniquely her own. Where others imposed, India responded not by submission, but by synthesis. That is a rare form of resilience, one that does not resist change, but never loses its core in the process. What the West often measures as strength, military might, political control, economic dominance, India meets with a very different kind of force. It is a strength that is inward, deeply spiritual, and based in continuity. The fact that India could be ruled politically for centuries, yet never culturally or spiritually broken, is a paradox that confounds those who think only in terms of external conquest. For thousands of years, despite colonization, suppression, and distortion of its narrative, India held on to its philosophical foundations. The ideas of karma, dharma, moksha, and non-dualism have survived and influenced not only its own people, but thinkers, mystics, and seekers across the world. During colonial rule, the British attempted to dismantle India's educational, economic, and religious frameworks. They underestimated the sheer depth and range of India's civilizational knowledge. India was not simply a collection of rulers and kingdoms. It was a flowing river of consciousness carried through oral traditions, scriptures, music, art, and most powerfully, memory. That collective memory kept the flame alive even when the body was shackled. Even as Western powers imposed new systems, Indian minds found ways to resist, to preserve, and to quietly prepare for resurgence. This resilience is also deeply psychological. It is the patience of a nation that knows time works in cycles, not straight lines. That knows pressure eventually gives way to transformation, that understands suffering not as defeat, but as purification. This philosophical orientation gave Indians a long-range view of history. They did not see their identity as tied to who ruled them at any moment in time, but to the eternal principles they upheld: truth, compassion, nonviolence, learning, and harmony with nature. Even today, as the world measures power through GDP, military ranks, and geopolitical influence, India continues to operate on multiple levels. It engages the modern world, yes, but always with the ancient self still intact. Its civilizational strength lies in this dual awareness, the ability to be fully modern, yet spiritually timeless. This is not about nostalgia for the past, but about honoring a lineage that has never been broken. A lineage that does not seek to dominate others, but will never allow itself to be dominated. India's spiritual and philosophical traditions form a bedrock of inner strength that cannot be quantified through material measures. While political powers come and go, and economic systems rise and fall, the essence of a civilization lies in its world, in how it understands life, purpose, suffering, and transcendence. In this regard, India stands unparalleled. The very foundation of Indian thought is inward, looking. It encourages inquiry, meditation, and the exploration of consciousness. Unlike many cultures where identity is rooted primarily in external achievements or possessions, Indian identity has always emphasized the discovery of the self, the Atman, and its unity with the ultimate reality, Brahman. This pursuit gives Indians a deep internal reservoir of stability and purpose that cannot be shaken by external pressure. The teachings of the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Dhammapada are not merely religious texts. They are manuals for inner awakening. They teach that true strength comes not from conquest of others, but from mastery over one's own mind. They emphasize detachment from ego, selfless action, and equanimity in the face of success or failure. These teachings have shaped not just saints and sages, but the common person. Generations of Indians have been raised with the understanding that life is a journey towards self-realization, that challenges are opportunities for growth, and that peace is found not in victory, but in alignment with Dharma. This spiritual philosophy also fosters resilience in times of crisis. When a people are rooted in an understanding that goes beyond life and death, beyond profit and loss, they do not collapse under pressure. They endure. During centuries of foreign invasions and colonization, this inner compass helped Indians maintain a sense of dignity and continuity. Even when temples were destroyed or scriptures were burned, the essence remained intact because it was never held in mere buildings or books. It was alive in the hearts and minds of the people. It was kept alive through chants, through meditation, through the silent strength of those who knew that what is eternal cannot be destroyed. Indian philosophy also emphasizes balance. The idea of the middle path, of moderation, of seeing opposites as part of a greater unity, allows for adaptability without inner conflict. The dualities of pleasure and pain, victory and defeat, are seen not as absolute, but as fleeting experiences. This gives Indians a remarkable capacity to recover from setbacks and to see beyond temporary chaos. They understand that time itself is cyclical, that after every night there is day, and after every destruction, a new creation. This cosmic view provides a deep patience and faith, which is often mistaken by outsiders as passivity, but it is not passivity. It is controlled, conscious endurance. India has also shared this spiritual strength with the world. Through yoga, meditation, Ayurveda, and non-dualistic thought, Indian philosophy has influenced millions globally. These are not just cultural exports. They are invitations to a way of life that values inner harmony over outer dominance. This approach threatens systems that rely on control, fear, and division because it offers an alternative, a society based on awareness, compassion, and inner freedom. That is a challenge the West cannot easily answer with weapons or policies. Even as modern India engages with technology, science, and commerce, its spiritual core remains active. People still take pilgrimages, children still learn mantras, the idea of the guru still holds sacred meaning. In a world increasingly disconnected from silence and reflection, India remains one of the few places where introspection is culturally encouraged and institutionally respected. This spiritual continuity is not ornamental, it is functional. It sustains mental health, promotes community coherence, and provides moral direction. It is the quiet, invisible force that makes India difficult to mentally colonize or culturally erase. India's ability to absorb foreign influences without losing its own identity is one of its most remarkable qualities. Throughout history, many civilizations have been overwhelmed or fundamentally altered by external forces, but India has demonstrated a unique capacity to integrate without surrendering its core essence. This cultural elasticity is not weakness, it is a sophisticated form of strength. It reflects a deep-rooted confidence in one's own values, allowing for interaction and even transformation without fear of losing the self. From the arrival of the Greeks to the influence of Islamic dynasties, from the Portuguese and French traders to British colonial rule, India encountered a wide range of external powers. And yet, despite all these waves of contact, it remains distinctly Indian in spirit, in thought, in rhythm, and in soul. This phenomenon is not accidental. It is rooted in a long-standing tradition of pluralism and openness. India's strategic adaptability in global power dynamics is one of the least understood yet most vital aspects of its enduring strength. In a world driven by shifting alliances, economic power plays, and geopolitical maneuvering, India has mastered the art of navigating complexity without compromising its sovereignty or identity. This adaptability is not born from indecision or neutrality, but from a deep understanding of timing, balance, and long-term vision. Unlike many nations that react impulsively to global pressures or align themselves too rigidly with one power bloc, India takes a more nuanced approach, one that is patient, calculated, and rooted in a civilizational memory that sees beyond short-term gain. Historically, India has dealt with both aggressive powers and opportunistic allies. Whether it was the empires of the East, the colonial ambitions of the West, or the post-war pressures of ideological blocs, India chose its responses with care. During the Cold War, for instance, India pioneered the non-aligned movement, not as a passive observer, but as a strategic actor refusing to be a pawn in a bipolar world. This move allowed India to assert moral leadership while retaining freedom in foreign policy. At a time when smaller nations were being forced into choosing sides, India's refusal to do so signaled a powerful declaration that national interest could coexist with ethical diplomacy, and that self-respect need not be sacrificed at the altar of global pressure. In the modern world, India continues to walk this tightrope with remarkable agility. It maintains strong ties with Western powers like the United States and Europe, while also nurturing time-tested relationships with Russia, engaging deeply with the global South, and expanding partnerships across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. It participates in forums like the Quad with Japan, Australia, and the US, while simultaneously being a member of BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. This multi-vector diplomacy reflects a strategic mindset that refuses to be boxed in or defined by others. India engages where it must, asserts where it should, and withdraws when necessary. It does not chase validation, it builds leverage. This adaptability is not limited to diplomacy. It extends into economic strategy as well. India has opened its markets when the time was right, invested in digital infrastructure at scale, and championed self-reliance under policies like Atmanirbhar Bharat, without isolating itself from global trade. It is developing indigenous technologies, securing energy partnerships, and cultivating innovation ecosystems, all while ensuring that the needs of its massive domestic population are not sacrificed for elite global interests. This balance of globalization and self-preservation is extremely rare. Many developing countries either become overly dependent on external powers or retreat into protectionism. India, by contrast, is crafting a middle path, one that secures its autonomy while participating fully in the global economy. India's military doctrine also reflects this strategic thought. It is not an aggressive power, but it maintains credible defense capabilities. It is a nuclear state, yet it adheres to a policy of no first use. It prefers diplomacy but prepares for deterrence. This posture of strength with restraint earns it both respect and stability. It avoids entangling itself in foreign wars, yet it stands firm in defending its borders and interests. This kind of clarity, knowing when to act, when to wait, and when to walk away, is a hallmark of mature strategy. What makes India even more unique is that this adaptability does not come at the cost of identity. Unlike many nations that alter their cultural or ideological fabric to fit global trends, India remains unmistakably itself. It adapts its strategy without diluting its soul. In a world that often demands conformity, India's refusal to become a clone of any other power is, in itself, a quiet form of resistance, a strength not always seen, but always felt. India's unity in diversity is one of the most profound and misunderstood sources of its strength. From the outside, the vast differences in language, religion, caste, region, and tradition may appear chaotic or even fragile. But what seems like fragmentation is, in fact, a complex and deeply rooted harmony. India is not a uniform civilization. It is a mosaic of countless subcultures that coexist, overlap, and interact. This diversity is not incidental, it is foundational. It has been nurtured over centuries, protected through philosophy, celebrated through festivals, and reinforced through a social fabric that knows how to bend without breaking. This pluralism is not merely political or institutional. It is spiritual and psychological. The Indian mind is trained from an early age to hold contradictions together. A child may speak one language at home, learn in another at school, and pray in a third at the temple. People across the country may follow entirely different customs, yet feel connected through a shared sense of belonging. The Ramayana may be recited differently in different regions, but the core story binds them all. The way a Muslim shopkeeper, a Sikh farmer, a Christian teacher, and a Hindu monk live and work side by side is not manufactured. It is organic, and it has evolved through centuries of dialogue, adaptation, and mutual respect. This diversity has not come without conflict, but what is remarkable is not the absence of tension, but the capacity to survive it without implosion. Unlike many nations that fracture under the weight of ethnic or sectarian division, India absorbs its differences. Its constitution guarantees religious freedom, regional representation, and linguistic autonomy. In practice, this means that people are not expected to shed their identity to become Indian. Being Indian is not defined by a single religion, language, or lifestyle. It is a shared commitment to a broader cultural ethos that allows individuality to thrive within a collective space. That is a rare form of unity, one that is chosen, not imposed. In times of crisis, this unity becomes even more visible. When the nation faces natural disasters, external threats, or internal challenges, people across caste, creed, and color rise together. The idea of bharatmata, or Mother India, is not just patriotic rhetoric. It is a psychological and emotional anchor that transcends personal divisions. It's what allows a country with over 1 billion people to still act with a kind of coordinated will when the situation demands it. Even during elections, despite fierce political disagreements, the system holds because people trust in the idea that their voice matters. that their identity will not be erased by the process. This unity in diversity also makes India uniquely resilient to external manipulation. Foreign powers have often tried to divide India through religion, region, or caste, but they have consistently underestimated the strength of its internal bonds. These bonds may not always be visible to those looking from the outside, especially through a Western lens that often equates unity with uniformity. But India's unity is like a banyan tree. Its branches spread wide, its roots are deep, and even when parts are cut, it continues to grow. Its resilience lies not in sameness, but in acceptance. This acceptance creates a kind of cultural immunity. Attempts to dominate India ideologically or culturally fail because the Indian mind is already trained to see multiple perspectives. It does not fear diversity, it expects it. This makes India difficult to convert, to colonize mentally, or to fully control. It is a country where contradictions are not only tolerated, but often celebrated. That in the modern world is a superpower, not built on the power to destroy, but on the capacity to contain, not on fear of the other, but on the ability to live with the other. This is why India continues to stand, not in spite of its diversity, but because of it.